Hello, everyone. Today we are doing lesson 14. God did not create a meaningless world. And we will be reading section 4 in chapter 2, the separation and the atonement. And section 4 is healing as release from fear. Our emphasis is now on healing. The miracle is the means, the atonement is the principle, and healing is the result. To speak of a miracle of healing is to combine two orders of reality inappropriately. Healing is not a miracle. The atonement or the final miracle is a remedy, and any type of healing is a result. The kind of error to which atonement is applied is irrelevant. All healing is essentially the release from fear. To undertake this, you cannot be fearful yourself. You do not understand healing because of your own fear. A major step in the atonement plan is to undo error at all levels. Sickness or not right mindedness is the result of level confusion because it always entails the belief that what is amiss on one level can adversely affect another. We have referred to miracles as the means of correcting level confusion, for all mistakes must be corrected at the level on which they occur. Only the mind is capable of error. The body can act wrongly only when it is responding to missed thought. The body cannot create, and the belief that it can, a fundamental error, produces all physical symptoms. Physical illness represents a belief in magic. The whole distortion that made magic rests on the belief that there is a creative ability in matter which the mind cannot control. This error can take two forms. It can be believed that the mind can miscreate in the body, or that the body can miscreate in the mind. When it is understood that the mind, the only level of creation, cannot create beyond itself, neither type of confusion need occur. Okay, I want to interject something here. I've been talking about how, as I have looked at these things I was taught to believe in as truth, and as I look at them and gain the correction from Holy Spirit of what it was I was believing in and why I was believing in what I was believing, and in getting that truth, I was able to let go of that belief and in its place the understanding of what it was I was doing to myself in that moment. That in believing in the judgments and lies I was taught, I manifested within my own body illness. I manifested the cancers that my body created with the judgments I was taught to believe about myself and about the people that had molested and raped me as a child. That they were evil, they were bad, they were wrong. That I was wrong, I was bad, I deserved what was being done. That in talking about it and bringing it up in the first place, they were telling me, just because it happens, don't talk about it, which engendered all kinds of shame and guilt within myself because I felt this need to talk about what happened to me, to bring it into the light. And in everywhere I turned, I was being told, no, that's bad, that's wrong. And my mind would take all of that in and believe it, that I was being bad, I was being wrong. And that constant belief of I'm bad, I'm wrong, everyone else is right, caused such turmoil in me that I was literally killing myself. And that is the kind of fundamental error that our minds can make in the beliefs that we take on. That's how they're connected deeply. Continuing on. Only the mind can create because spirit has already been created, and the body is a learning device for the mind. Learning devices are not lessons in themselves. Their purpose is merely to facilitate learning. The worst a faulty use of a learning device can do is to fail to facilitate learning. It has no power in itself to introduce actual learning errors. The body, if properly understood, shares the invulnerability of the atonement to two-edged application. This is not because the body is a miracle, but because it is not inherently open to misperception. The body is merely part of your experience in the physical world. Its abilities can be and frequently are overvaluated. However, it is almost impossible to deny its existence in this world. Those who do so are engaging in a particularly unworthy form of denial. The term unworthy here implies only that it is not necessary to protect the mind by denying the unmindful. If one denies this unfortunate aspect of the mind's power, one is also denying the power itself. All material means that you accept as remedies for bodily ills are restatements of magic principles. This is the first step in believing that the body makes its own illness. It is a second misstep to attempt to heal it through non creative agents. It does not follow, however, that the use of such agents for corrective purposes is evil. Sometimes the illness has a sufficiently strong hold over the mind to render a person temporarily inaccessible to the atonement. In this case, it may be wise to utilize a compromise approach to mind and body, in which something from the outside is temporarily given healing belief. This is because the last thing that can help the non right minded or the sick is an increase in fear. They are already in a fear weakened state. If they are prematurely exposed to a miracle, they may be precipitated into panic. This is likely to occur when upside down perception has induced the belief that miracles are frightening. So, this correlates right in with what I was just talking about, how the things that we are believing in our mind create the illnesses within our bodies. And sometimes we have to have a belief in something outside of ourselves, such as medications. Here, you got a headache, take 2 aspirin. And people say, what'll it do? It'll get rid of your headache. It'll make you feel much better. And so what do? They take it, and because they have this belief that this person is telling them the truth, it happens. And then if you were to tell them, oh, no, you just made that up in your mind. It's an illusion. You just created that headache in your head. Now, look at your thoughts and say, okay, I'm done. And it just disappears. You'd be freaking out. You would not be able to handle how instantly that happened. It's like, this past weekend when I had that migraine, when it disappeared instantaneously, I because I'd been doing this course for so long, I understood the implications of the connection. Years ago, if it had happened to me then, I would have been going, "Oh my God, it's a miracle," and thinking that something miraculous had happened. So, and then the next time I got a migraine, I would have been like, "Well, whoa, what was all that about?" I wouldn't have understood. I wouldn't have been able to connect the dots. And it was being able to see exactly how they correlated one with the other that opened my eyes to how truly connected my beliefs are to my thoughts, and my thoughts to my emotional feelings, and my emotional feelings to my body's experiences. Continuing on with the last paragraph. The value of the atonement does not lie in the manner in which it is expressed. In fact, if it is used truly, it will inevitably be expressed in whatever way is most helpful to the receiver. This means that a miracle, to attain its full efficacy, must be expressed in a language that the recipient can understand without fear. This does not necessarily mean that this is the highest level of communication of which he is capable. It does mean, however, that it is the highest level of communication of which he is capable now. The whole aim of the miracle is to raise the level of communication, not to lower it by increasing fear. And that, folks, was section 4 in chapter 2, the separation and the atonement. Section 4 being healing as release from fear. Now we're going to move on to today's lesson, which is lesson 14. God did not create a meaningful world. Or, excuse me, meaningless world. Wow! Yeah, no, we give the world the meanings we want to give it right now, so that's how we make it meaningful for us, folks. But God did not create a meaningless world, and that world that we're making meaningful right now is quite meaningless. Sorry, my faux pas there. Okay, it's my dyslexia. It tends to make me say the exact opposite of what I'm seeing. Say it backwards, switch it around, put it upside down, you name it. It's a craziness that I have enjoyed figuring out for my 40 some odd years. So, lesson 14, God did not create a meaningless world. I get it right this time. The idea for today is, of course, the reason why a meaningless world is impossible. What God did not create does not exist. And everything that does exist exists as He created it. The world you see has nothing to do with reality. It is of your own making and it does not exist. The exercises for today are to be practiced with eyes closed throughout. The mind searching period should be short, a minute at most. Do not have more than 3 practice periods with today's idea unless you find them comfortable. If you do, it will be because you really understand what they are for. The idea for today is another step in learning to let go the thoughts that you have written on the world and see the Word of God in their place. The early steps in this exchange, which can truly be called salvation, can be quite difficult and even quite painful. Some of them will lead you directly into fear. You will not be left there. You will go far beyond it. Our direction is toward perfect safety and perfect peace. With eyes closed, think of all the horrors in the world that cross your mind. Name each one as it occurs to you, and then deny its reality. God did not create it, and so it is not real. Say, for example, God did not create that war, and so it is not real. God did not create that airplane crash, and so it is not real. God did not create that disaster. Specify it. And so it is not real. Suitable subjects for the application of today's idea also include anything you are afraid might happen to you or to anyone about whom you are concerned. In each case, name the disaster quite specifically. Do not use general terms. For example, do not say God did not create illness, but God did not create cancer or heart attacks or whatever may arouse fear in you. This is your personal uh, repertory of horrors at which you are looking. These things are part of the world you see. Some of them are shared illusions, and others are part of your personal hell. It does not matter. What God did not create can only be in your own mind apart from His. Therefore, it has no meaning. In recognition of this fact, conclude the practice periods by repeating today's idea. God did not create a meaningless world. The idea for today can, of course, be applied to anything that disturbs you during the day, aside from the practice periods. Be very specific in applying it. Say, God did not create a meaningless world. He did not create. Specify the situation which is disturbing you, and so it is not real. That was lesson 14. God did not create a meaningless world. And once again, it's correlating with everything I've been talking about. How we project out on the world what it is we believe to be true within our hearts and minds. Everything that we have been taught to believe and to put our faith and trust into has been taught to us by somebody else, and it was taught to them and their parents before them and their parents before them. In this same way, we then take what we are taught and project it out on society, reinforcing what everyone else is also being taught, because they're being taught to also project that same thing out on society and on their peers. Truly look at these things and take them deep within your heart and mind and consider what it is they are saying truly. You know, there's something that the Course explains later on, that words are but symbols of symbols twice removed, and they only have the meaning you give them. One meaning is the one that we are taught. Another is the emotional meaning that we attach to them. And it's those emotional meanings that overlay what we are being told to believe is true about those words. Alex, something that we were talking about earlier when we were talking about the altar in the temple that was helping to give you clarity of understanding.
You have the heart.
Okay, can you clarify more so I can bring it back to my mind?
The heart being the altar in the temple. The center of the temple is the temple being your body.
Yeah. So in yesterday's lesson, it was talking in the chapter stuff. It was talking about the temple and the altar, and how we look at the outer temple as being beautiful and everything. And that temple it's referring to is our bodies, how we perceive our bodies. And it's something that was being brought to my attention that needs to be clarified in this. When we look at ourselves in the mirror or we look at somebody else, we look at their quote unquote temple, their body, and we look at them and we say, oh my God, they've got such a beautiful body. I wish I had those hips or those facial features or those lips or those eyes or that hair. And we constantly compare ourselves, our temple, to theirs. And in many instances, we look at these magazines and these things on TV, and we see these people that we see as having the perfect body, the perfect temple. And as we look in the mirror at ourselves, we are overlaying an image of them over ourselves and wondering why what we see is so distorted and out of whack. And in that way, we are defiling our altar. Do you get what I'm saying here? When you overlay that picture of someone else as being perfect over yourself and compare the two, you are distorting the truth of who you are. You are discounting that you are absolutely perfect as God created you. And in that moment, you are defiling the altar within you with a belief in something that is not true. And in that way, every time we take in these judgments and opinions about others and about ourselves, when we take these things in and believe in them, even in the slightest degree, we are defiling our own altar within ourselves of who we are. We are piling shit all over ourselves in that moment. Think about that. When you take on those opinions and those judgments from someone else that you're this, you're that, you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Ooh, ugly words, shoulds and shouldn'ts. That's a judgment and an opinion of someone else's that you are taking in and believing. Each time you do something like that, you are literally taking a bucket of feces and dumping it over yourself and bathing in it, rubbing it all over yourself. That is the mental picture I get with that. Picture that in your mind every time you are being told you should or shouldn't do something and you are believing that each time you take and you do that belief, you are literally dumping feces on yourself. Not a pretty picture. Doesn't smell good. Doesn't feel good. Pretty gross. Pretty repugnant. And I mean, if you think about it, feces, look at all the bacteria and waste that's in there that causes disease. Ebola, E. coli. I think it's E. coli that I was meaning, salmonella, not washing the hands. That kind of ickiness. It's the same thing when you are believing in somebody else's judgments and opinions of you.
God did not create Ebola.
I know, we did. Exactly. Alex is saying we did not, God did not create Ebola. And he's absolutely right. We did with our judgments, our opinions of believing something to be true. That's a manifestation. We manifest these diseases within ourselves with our beliefs. And this is the kind of stuff that he's pointing out to us in here. We do this to ourselves. Nobody else is doing it to us. We do it to ourselves when we believe it to be true. Always. All right. Thank you for joining us today. That was lesson 14. God did not create a meaningless world. And chapter 2 is the separation and the atonement. Section 4, healing as release from fear. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Sabrina Reyenga with Alex, my husband, behind the camera. Camera.
Huh?
Yeah.
Am I a bartender now?
Bartender, give me another drink, please.
Sound like you've already had one too many.
No kidding, huh? I can't talk today. My dyslexia is kicking in full blast. So, have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you for joining us and our playfulness. We love you. I'm seeing you as you are, as a holy son of God. Namaste.